As a young boy and as the oldest in a family of 6, one of the things that my siblings and I did with my father, one of the activities was fishing. My dad liked all different types of fishing, but in particular there are 2 that I remember doing with him. The first being one I always remember during this time of the year, ice fishing. If you've never had the opportunity to ice fish, you should have it at least once. And so you pack up everything and bring it out into the middle of the lake, frozen, and hopefully you have a gas auger so you can easily drill a hole through the ice to put in your tackle and set the flag on it and wait to catch a fish. But if you don't have the gas-powered auger, you've got your human muscles. You have to use a little more human strength to get the hole through the ice. So you crank the auger until the hole goes all the way through the ice. The other type of fishing was a type of fishing that we would do only at night, because this is when this particular type of fish was able to be caught. It was hornpout or catfishing, not the type you see on TV where they put their hand in. We don't do that, no. Other ways, but we'd go to the Quabbin Reservoir late in the afternoon, early in the evening, before it got too dark, to set up your spot there and to be able to fish at nighttime. We did this, of course, recreationally. We did, of course, eat the fish that we caught, but it wasn't how we made our living. But as I grew into adulthood, even though these types of fishing didn't follow me into adulthood as a hobby, it helped me to always think about the first disciples of Jesus, that of all the occupations that were there, the first who would follow him would be those who made their living by fishing. And I think one of the reasons that this is so, as we discover in the gospel today, is that they were used to dealing with failure when things didn't go so well. We see that with Simon Peter today, in that he and his fellow fishermen had been fishing all night and had not caught one fish. You can imagine how discouraging that would be to have not caught anything after all that work and effort. And yet, at the Lord's command, he agrees to put into the deep water again, and they come up with a miraculous catch. And so this experience of Christ, through this miracle of fish, leads Simon Peter to feel unworthy. In fact, in the scriptures today, we encounter 3 people, all of whom have an experience of God, of Christ, have an experience of the divine, have an experience of glory, and in the wake of having that experience, feel themselves unworthy. We encounter Isaiah with this vision in the temple of the angels crying, "Holy, holy, holy," like we'll sing a little bit later in the Mass. And Isaiah feeling unworthy, as the prophets all did. And he said, no, not me. I'm a man of unclean lips. And the Lord, as he always would take Isaiah's excuse away and send the angel with the coal to touch his lips. I've cleansed your lips. I've taken your excuse away. You are the one I want. We encounter Paul. He, in the passage from one of Paul's letters to the Corinthians, describes what he is handing on. I have received this, and I'm handing it on to you. And in some way, that's why we're here today, because Paul took what he received, handed it on to someone, and so on, and so on, and so on, until 2022. And if that had not happened, we might not well be here today. And yet, Paul, in this experience of having been trusted with the gospel, himself feels unworthy. He says, "But I persecuted the church. I am the last of the apostles. I do not even deserve to be called an apostle. Yet, by the grace of God, I am what I am." not about Paul and his past life. It's about God's grace at work in him. And finally, as I mentioned, the third of the people we encounter today who experiences something miraculous and feels unworthy in the wake of it is Simon Peter in the great fish miracle. And he says, wants to send Jesus away. "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." The Lord doesn't depart from him. Rather, Simon Peter and the others leave all to follow Christ. We too, when we experience in this life God's power, we too can feel unworthy. We can say, like Isaiah, "I'm a person of unclean lips." We can say, like Paul, "I don't deserve to be called an apostle." And we can say, like Simon Peter, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful person." And yet the Lord does not depart from us. The Lord stays with us and invites us to put out into deeper water. Isn't this really the story of the Mass? In a few moments during the liturgy of the Eucharist, we will have Christ's body and blood here on the altar. And that is like Isaiah's experience of the angels in Holy, Holy, Holy. It's like Paul's experience of being entrusted with the gospel, his conversion, despite his past life. It is a bit like us experiencing the miraculous amount of fish so that 2 boats were about to sink. And in the face of the miracle we experience at the Mass, when we present bread and wine, and in return Christ gives us his body and blood, we can feel unworthy. Isn't that what we say towards the communion time? I say, "Behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sins of the world. Blessed are those called to the supper of the Lamb." And we say, what? "Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof." I had to remember it's been 12 years since the change, and I still go back. I'm not worthy that you enter under my roof, but that's not the end of the story. Only say the word, and I will be made worthy. I will be healed. My soul will be healed. That is the great story today. Even if we feel unworthy, it is God's grace that makes us worthy. It's us allowing God's grace to come, as we heard in the opening prayer, that they may rely solely on the Lord's grace, not on our efforts. If it was on our efforts, Isaiah would remain unworthy. If it was on our efforts, Paul would not have been entrusted with the gospel. He would have been disqualified because of his past life. If it were not for God's grace, Simon Peter sent away because he was sinful. But it is by God's grace that we are who we are and that we're here today. We too should never give in to discouragement. As you know, in the new evangelization, we are called to double down on our efforts to share the good news of Jesus Christ with every man, woman, and child that we can. And we're asked to do so with a new passion, with new methods, with new expressions. And I don't know about you, I can only speak for myself. There's been more than one occasion that I have in my own prayer, like St. Peter said to Jesus, "But we've been doing this already. I've been doing this for 28 years as a priest. The church has been doing this for a long time. It doesn't look like we're making any progress. It doesn't look like we're getting any results. It doesn't look like we're being effective. But if you command, Lord, I'll keep going. If you command, Lord, I'll cast the net out even wider and even deeper." And so we shouldn't give in to discouragement, which is, we can be prone to do it. I won't speak for you. I can only speak for myself, which I know I can be prone to do. If we're discouraged, we give up. And yet the Lord keeps calling us to put out into deeper water, to cast a wider net, to have more passion, to embrace all the methods available to us, old and new, to use new expressions of faith, to offer the gift of faith to others. Today, though we might feel unworthy, know that the Lord does not leave us, that the Lord stays with us and invites us to leave all and follow him, invites us to cast our nets into deeper water, to cast our nets even wider.